Hello, everybody. Welcome in. Good morning. We've got a lot of NBA basketball to talk today. So welcome to the NBA Front Office Show. By the way, if you haven't done so yet, you're on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Turn on those notifications as well. Keith, I'm not going to expect you to yell this morning. How are you doing?
Well, as seen by how unshaven I am, I'm a little wiped out, but I'm good. I'm good. Everything is good. This is a fun time of year for all the deals to be going official and all that, and everything to be coming in here. So I'm really excited. For everything. It's always nice to see how it all gets put together, right? We get all the reporting on everything, and we have a lot of speculation of, all right, this guy's going to get the room exception, and they'll have to renounce this guy, and they'll have to do this via sign and trade. And then once it all actually comes in, we get to get a sense of this is how it all comes together. And I really like that part of it. That's the kind of final piece to the puzzle getting put together there.
Exactly. This is a fun time of year because of that. And I love that we finally see the team accounts tweet stuff out and send out their press releases and all of that, because like we all know it's happening, but the teams all have to pretend that it hasn't, or that it's not going to, you know what I mean? Like, well, oh no, we can't say anything about that. And then finally they can really, say, oh yeah, okay, we signed this player or whatever it is. We traded for this player, because technically none of the deals get done until July 6th. So now that's all done.
Well, there was a funny moment. I don't know if you were watching the Kings playing Team China last night. It was like the last summer league game, but they had at halftime they interviewed Keon Ellis from the Kings and said, "Hey, how do you feel about DeMar DeRozan?" And you could tell he knew like he couldn't talk about it yet. So he was like, "I was playing." He's like, "I just found out." A couple seconds ago, somebody told me, he goes, and then he was kind of like, he's a great player. So see what happens. Like, so it was just
I didn't see that. They introduced him at the game, though, didn't they?
Yeah, they introduced him, but I think they just introduced him as DeMar DeRozan, and it was really cool because he came walking in, and like the place went bananas, which is fun, right? Like that's
sure.
That's a lot of fun. That just happened to be that portion of the California Classic was being held in the Golden One Center. So that was a really fun thing. I want to answer two quick questions.
Let's do it.
From Winbo Anton Villamor, I think so you say that. Where's my new mic? It's been delayed. So I think I think it was the holiday caught it up. So
that'll do it.
Hopefully soon it'll be here, but it's coming. It's coming. And then this one from Drew. This happens every time I wear this hat. It's my daughter's school. It's a stylized FA, and it's a lion paw because they're the Lions. So it's Foundation Academy. People generally think it's a John Morant hat and think it's like some sort of like grizzly paw, but it isn't. It's Foundation Academy where our daughter goes to school. So
all right. Let's get into the DeMar DeRozan deal. That's the big news of the day for us to get into. The Kings get DeMar DeRozan in a sign and trade. Now, I believe off the top of my head, it's 3 years, $74 million.
Somewhere in that range.
Somewhere in that range.
One was 74, one was 76. So call it 375, I guess. Somewhere
roughly $25 million a year for 3 seasons. Do you happen to know? Because I haven't seen. Are there any player options or team options, anything like that?
I'm gonna double check that right now. I'm pulling it up because I think it is. I think the final third year is partially guaranteed.
Okay. So Keith, your hat FA is for free agent. This comment says.
Good point. It could be for free agent.
It could be.
Right, you know what's funny? My broken mush brain didn't even like think of that. So, but I love it. Perfect. Now we'll cut that and we'll re-release the show. And
there we go. Yeah, that's how we'll do it. So DeRozan gets a 3-year deal, partial guarantee perhaps on the third year.
Yep.
DeRozan's going to be 35 in August, so that adding that partial guarantee, I think, is actually a good win for the Kings, depending on how much of it is guaranteed. Of course, if it winds up being 20 million out of 25 million is guaranteed or whatever. And then you're like, okay, well, but send Harrison Barnes to the San Antonio Spurs and Chris Duarte, 2 second-round picks and cash to the Bulls. We had a feeling, given the Devontae Graham move that was made earlier in the day, he went to the Hornets with a second-round pick, and only I think 2.8 million of his salary was guaranteed. Correct. So the Spurs opened up a roster spot by doing that. Now we saw why. Harrison Barnes goes to San Antonio. Chris Duarte, a couple of seconds. So rather than lose DeMar DeRozan for nothing in free agency, the Bulls pick up Chris Duarte and a couple of second-round picks. That's not bad.
Yeah,
right?
And there's still a little bit TBD with this trade because Harrison Barnes has a trade kicker that could impact exactly how much they give Chris Paul. I think it'll be okay. He'll waive it or they'll make some other minor move if they have to get this done. The Spurs are going to have to cut a couple players too to fit this in. But yeah, it's not going to change the end terms of the trade, I don't think at all. But we'll be watching for that a little bit just to make sure everything is clean cap and trade rules wise. So I'll cover the Chris Duarte part very quickly.
Yeah.
Actually played pretty good in the Olympic qualifying tournament for Dominican Republic. He had a really nice rookie season. He was one of those older rookies that came in. A lot of people were kind of excited about him and the things he did early. And then he now is just kind of had some injuries with Indiana, got lost in the shuffle as they really added a bunch of wings, and then moved to Sacramento, never really regained his form there. So Chicago, which looks like they're leaning towards a rebuild, should be able to maybe give him a few minutes here. Let's see what he looks like. He goes from there. The Bulls will also, at least for now, create a pretty massive trade exception in this by sending out DeRozan via sign and trade. So that's helpful for them. And like you said, they get a couple second round picks for helping out here. And then dude, we go to DeRozan with the Kings because
let's not bury the lead. Let's do DeRozan with the Kings, then we'll get to the Spurs, and then I want to talk about what Chicago's up to. So let's go. Sure. DeRozan lands in the Kings. He replaces now. DeRozan played a bunch of power forward last year for Chicago. So I mean, he probably slots in as a 3-4 with the Kings. Obviously, gives you an offensive boost. He'll be playing alongside Keegan Murray there, plus Domantas Sabonis. Gives you a guy who can get a bucket in an instant when you need to, can handle the ball a bit when De'Aaron Fox is off the floor. This Kings team has scoring for days with DeRozan, with Malik Monk, with Fox, with Sabonis. Keegan Murray can light it up. They've got so many guys that can put the ball in the basket. I think the big question mark, though, is swapping out Harrison Barnes for DeRozan. While overall it is an upgrade for Sacramento, does the defensive downgrade concern you?
Maybe. Barnes was slipping pretty rapidly on defense, so I'm not too concerned about it. I think more or less the Kings are leaning into saying, hey, if we have Domantas Sabonis as our anchor on the back line, we're probably never going to be an elite defensive team. Yeah. Maybe with the 4 elite defenders around him, we could have scrapped out somewhere around the 15th defensive rating in the league or something like that. So let's just lean in and try to outscore everybody. I saw a lot of people saying, well, doesn't DeRozan overlap with Malik Monk? I mean, kind of, sort of, but you hit on it. DeRozan is a forward now. He really plays 3-4, which is what Murray plays. So they'll both just play forward. So they'll go Sabonis, the 2 forwards of Murray and DeRozan, and then the backcourt. I kind of think maybe Kevin Huerter will start still because there's just such a comfort level with Malik Monk coming off the bench. But Monk did restate at the presser that he did about re-signing that he does want to start, but then caveat, but hey, whatever it takes for the team to be good and all things. So that one could go either way. I'm not too worried about that. So I think, the question is going to be, do you have enough shooting? Because Sabonis isn't really a shooter, at least with range. Murray his shot kind of comes and goes. And then DeRozan was a better shooter and has started to take a few more threes. But yeah, offensively, this team's going to be really, really tough.
Yeah, that's, they'll be able to score. I think that's a good point about the 3-point shooting, their floor spacing. Harrison Barnes, certainly a better 3-point shooter than DeRozan. Once again, DeMar DeRozan is the better player. There's no question there. There's some interesting wrinkles for them to figure out in terms of fit. You look at DeMar DeRozan and what he's done last season with the Chicago Bulls. Took almost 3 threes per game. That's more than he's ever taken at any point in his career in the modern NBA. That less than 3 threes per game for a guy who handles the ball and scores as much as he does is actually pretty low volume. And he shot 33%. He's a career 29.6% three-point shooter. So he's not going to give you a lot there. He is more that master of the mid-range. But again, I think this is a solid addition for Sacramento, certainly from the talent side, even if there is, some things that will have to be ironed out. Mike Brown will have a little bit of his work to do there as far as fit. But this is an upgrade for Sacramento. I get why Kings fans are excited. You know what Sacramento said? We've got a team that's good enough. We want De'Aaron Fox to stay long-term. Let's make the move. Let's do what we need to do. And let's go all in to try to win right now.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, they're just trying to build up an offensive team that's going to be extremely hard to stop. And I think they have. I think they'll be really good. It's just going to be, can they defend enough? Can they get rebounds? I think their passing will be excellent because DeRozan is a terrific passer. So you really added another good passer. And that can help open up a guy like Keegan Murray, because now Keegan Murray most nights is going in as the 4th, or maybe even when Monk's out there, the 5th option. That's a pretty good offensive 5th option to have there. So does this vault them into title contention? Probably not right there, but playoff contention, sure. Them and I don't know 13 other teams in the West that are battling for 10 spots in the play-in tournament. Because it's really, for me, it's Portland and Utah probably aren't. Want to move to San Antonio because San Antonio could be frisky.
What's San Antonio doing here, getting Harrison Barnes? Is it just they wanted another person closer to his age for Chris Paul to talk to? Was that the plan here?
Yeah, Chris Paul was like, look, I love Pop, but I don't want him to be the next closest in age to me on the roster. Like, can we get one more dude that's around my timeline? Yeah. I think it's funny because it's a playoff, what you said. I think they wanted to grow up the roster a little bit, right? Not that means guys were immature in a bad way. They were just very young. Like, it was young guys leading other young guys, and they're all just kind of figuring it out on their own. So now you get Chris Paul and you get Harrison Barnes in there. Those are 2 great veterans. And for like Harrison Barnes, he's going to help along some of the forwards on this team. So like Keldon Johnson, Jeremy Sohan, they'll benefit from having Harrison Barnes around, much like Chris Paul is obviously going to really help the guards like Devin Vassell, Malachi Branham, obviously Stephon Castle as he comes in as a rookie, and Trey Jones. And then both of those guys will benefit the only guy who really matters in this whole thing, Victor Wembanyama, because they'll free things up for him considerably. So yeah, I think the Spurs sneakily here got a lot better with this with these moves. There's a couple guys we're still showing on the spot track cap sheet, which Trevor just pulled up, like Julian Champagnie, Charles Bassey. Those guys probably won't be there by the time everything is final, just because you have to create the cap space. But for now, we don't move out guys. We don't assume waivers or anything like that. So but I mean, San Antonio, it's sneaky, right? I'm not going to say they're going to win 40 games, 50 games, but I think could potentially put themselves in a position to play competitive basketball in the range of the 10th seed until like the trade deadline. And that's really what you want as you try to grow up.
Now, this question asks, does this mean the Spurs are out on Lauri Markkanen? Not necessarily. I mean, he's got such a low salary at just 18 million and change that, I mean, you can put together an offer for Markkanen still. Like, I don't think this changes anything as far as that goes.
Yeah, without a doubt. And one of the things that they can do is they can actually, because they acquire it, presumably, if everything goes the way we think, they're going to acquire Harrison Barnes by himself using cap space. So they can either turn right around and trade him by himself, or they can actually aggregate him together. You don't have the 60-day waiting period because you acquired him with cap space. So they should be able to, they could, for example, just because they're near the top of the page, Barnes and Johnson together, there's $39 million a matching salary they
Yeah.
could send out and get involved on just about anybody here. So yeah, I would say they're definitely still in on Lauri Markkanen if they want to do that. It just seems like Danny Ainge is just sitting there day by day. All right, another guy off the board, another guy off the board. If you want the big time player, you got to come to me, and that's going to mean you better be ready to pay.
All right, let's jump to Chicago. Keith, are they slowly but surely doing it? Are they
I think
slowly
so.
wading into the waters of the rebuild here? Now you've got DeRozan gone off the roster. What does this mean? What does this mean for them moving forward here?
Yeah, I think they would love to jump in with 2 feet and
Yeah.
already probably have traded Zach LaVine. That's proven to be problematic. They have not been able to find the right kind of deal for Zach LaVine. Because one of the things I was told over the weekend, or I guess we're still in the weekend, all time is irrelevant.
Time is
Especially
meaningless this point of the year.
Yeah. But they are, I think what they are really looking to do is send LaVine somewhere where like he wants to be. They don't want to just ship him off. They're trying to do right by him.
Okay.
Under the idea of, hey, we acquired this guy. We've given him 2 other one of them was a salary or a offer sheet match as a restricted free agent, but we gave him this max deal. They're just trying to, I think, save a little face here, do the right thing. So we'll see what happens with that one. But yeah, Vucevic, I think they'd like to move him too. He was surprisingly bad in the
I'm worried about him.
Qualifying turn. Every once in a while, right, we see those older players. They just they fall off a cliff and they just never get
it happens
back
fast.
again. Yeah, and when it goes, yeah, that's exactly it. When it goes, it goes. So I don't really know what to expect with Vucevic there, but yeah, Patrick Williams got what I think is a pretty solid contract extension. I have no issue with that. They traded for Josh Giddey. Jalen Smith is a nice bridge piece. If you're chasing a playoff spot, he can help. If you're rebuilding, he's young enough to be a part of that. Now you get Duarte. That's more like a 1-year flyer. Let's see what he pops and if he does anything. And then, of course, Lonzo is sitting there too at 21.4 million. And let's see what happens with him.
So the next move, and by the way, Bulls fans, I love this for them. That they're finally picking a direction. I'm not saying Chris Duarte in a couple of seconds is the return everyone dreamed of in Chicago or anything like that, but just that it seems like they're finally making this move, and it's been long overdue. They've needed to make this decision. Let's see what happens with Lonzo. You've picked up some interesting young pieces. I like that you made the move to go get Jalen Smith, who's 24 years old, so that way if he does work out with him, great. He's a part of your long-term future. He's a guy that can stick around for a while. But now it becomes what happens with Zach LaVine. And that's going to be a big part of this team's future, the assets that they get back or what they have to give up in order to move off of him, in order to create the flexibility. We'll see. I know we've talked about this. You don't buy that they're really offering up a first in order for a team to take Zach LaVine.
At least not right now. And now you're kind of in a spot where you absolutely don't want to do that, right? Because now you're not trying to pivot to let's keep DeRozan, let's try to turn this thing very quickly. There's no reason to give up draft picks to dump Zach LaVine. You can either let him come in and play for you and be bad, or maybe he takes longer to recover from an injury and you're going to be bad. You're going to be bad either way. You don't need to be giving up draft picks to get off contracts here. You're not trying to do anything that quickly. Now that will maybe change by the time we roll into the trade deadline, maybe a little later here in the summer. Maybe there's something else that comes up that we're not seeing right now, where it is, some other high salary player wants out, and then there becomes something. But yeah, for right now, you just got to kind of hang on to it and see where it goes, because it would be completely irresponsible to move off a pick. And I was told same thing. A lot of Bulls reporters were told that's not something the Bulls were ever looking to do.
Okay. All right. So because I get people asking me all the time, well, if you get a first, would you take LaVine? And it doesn't make a lot of sense for them to do that. You wait until a team gets desperate. Although, I mean, Sacramento was one of the teams that was supposed to be interested, supposed to be a landing spot for Zach LaVine. Now he's off the table because they're off the table because of DeRozan. So we'll see ultimately where that goes. But good to see some direction here.
The Sacramento piece. I think it might have been Casey Johnson. I apologize if it wasn't him. Reported that like the Bulls and Kings, the DeRozan stuff seems like it was an offshoot and started out of the Levine conversation to send Levine to
that makes sense.
Sacramento, and then it was probably what happened was they didn't get where they wanted to go. They probably kept in touch on it, and then now we're 3, 4, 5 days into free agency. DeMar DeRozan's still there, and then that starts like, hey, what's going on with DeRozan? Can we talk that? Would there be a way? And then you just kind of move forward from there. So that becomes really interesting.
Yeah, it's just the switch from Levine to DeRozan, and of course, much easier to get a deal done for DeRozan at about 25 million ish, depending on where that salary comes in, rather than Zach LaVine, who's at 43 million. Trying to, put together that trade is much more difficult. All right,
Yep.
Let's get into some of our questions and our comments that have come into the show. I know we're not going to go super long here on this one, but Legacy said, is it true Houston doesn't plan on re-signing Sengun and Jalen Green? If so should the Lakers trade for Sengun? I'll pull up Houston's cap sheet, but Keith, just on the surface, without even looking at anything, I'd have to think, no, that can't be true at all.
So it's true-ish, but the ish part is going to do a lot of the lifting here. They're probably not going to sign these guys to extensions right now. Because let's use Tyrese Maxey as the proxy here. Philly could only get Paul George and Caleb Martin and all the other stuff they're going to do this summer because Tyrese Maxey didn't sign an extension last year. That meant Maxey was going to sit on the books at a very low cap hold compared to what he would ultimately make. It's like $20 million difference. So with Sengun, we're in kind of the same place with him, where his is a $16 million cap hold. So my guess is Houston and Sengun are working through one of two things. It's probably some version of, hey, we want to pay you. We'd like to give you the max, but can you delay? And in his case, he would probably say yes if he trusts and believes in that, much like Maxey did with Philly.
Right.
Or there's a conversation which also could be happening of, we don't really want to go to the max. We're offering this. And that's not enough for him. So he may be saying, no, I'm going to hold, I'm going to delay, and we'll talk. Green's in a slightly different situation. You don't benefit as much by delaying his because he already made his cap hold is going to be 31 million next summer. So you don't really add the benefit of waiting on that. That is more of, can we see you play more than 1 month of really good basketball? We need to see that a little bit more. Or, hey, if you want to take 20 million a year, great, let's go. We'll get that done today and move on. But the Rockets have built everything to have a ton of flexibility going into next summer because you've got like Fred VanVleet's big contract, almost 45 million coming off the books. So they could be a major cap space player next summer. And they don't want Sengun and Green. Let's say it was even a combined 60 million on extensions for them. You don't want that sitting on your books because that takes you out of the running for cap space. Now, we did hear a little bit of buzz. Maybe Sengun could have been offered in the Kevin Durant trade, but that's the kind of player you're talking about. Right. They're going to move off Alper and Sengun. So should the Lakers trade for him? I mean, yeah, if it was just, can you trade for a guy? Done. $5 million? Make that happen.
Absolutely.
Tomorrow. But are they going to get there? Probably not, because they don't have like the offer back to Houston that would be like the KD type of player coming back or anything like that.
So here's ultimately where I land, because people will see reports like that, like they're going to not re-sign these guys right now and take that to mean they don't want those players.
Yes.
That's really the crux of this. Does Houston want Sengun and Jalen Green? Yes, 100%. This is not they don't want those guys. This is just strategically delaying signing these guys to maximize your cap room. That's all. This is not a oh my gosh, they're available on the trade market now and you can go get these guys. They're going to try and sell these guys and get rid of them. No, that's not where this is at. So if it was, I think Houston would be absolutely insane. But yeah, that's not where this is. So by the way, guys, in the chat, if you guys are just spamming the same question over and over and over again, I'm going to put you in timeout. Like, don't make me play teacher role here. Just
we're not going to answer it either.
Yeah, we're not going to answer it if you're just asking over and over and over again.
Before we move off the Rockets,
yes,
one other thing that tells me that they're going cap space next summer. Aaron Holiday signed via the biannual exception. Mm-hmm. So when you use the biannual exception, that means you don't have it available to use the next year. biannual, right? It's every other year if you use it. So if you also go the cap space route, you lose the biannual exception. So that tells me the Rockets were very comfortable using it this year, knowing there's a very good chance that they're going to go under the cap next year, and they wouldn't have had it anyway.
Yeah.
So use it this year to retain a player that you like on a very tradable contract if you need to move it down the line. And now you have Aaron Holiday. You would have lost that biannual exception next year and go. This is like the kind of stuff I was thought through a bunch of this stuff on the fly while I was on my morning walk a couple of days ago, because this is how my brain works. Like it doesn't get shut off thinking about stuff like this, even though I was trying to listen to a podcast. I ended up, it was one of those where I'm like 5 minutes deeper into the podcast. I'm like, I have no idea what they just said.
Yep.
Yeah. And I had to keep going back.
I do that too. You look at all those, man, look at all that red next summer, all those team options, boy.
A bunch of those are rookie scale team options that'll get picked up. But Houston has incredible flexibility moving forward for a team that got a lot better, a lot quicker than any of us thought.
All right, let's jump here. So the Lakers escaped the second apron. So LeBron James took a little bit less in order for the Lakers to be below the second apron. According to Bobby Marks, they are $45,000 below the second apron. So just barely getting under that bar. Can they do trades now? I mean, yeah, they can. Will they? We'll see. Someone asked Rob. If the Lakers waive and stretch Cam or one of our centers, does that open a taxpayer then? No, that wouldn't free up enough room to use a full taxpayer underneath that second apron. Again, they're only under it by $45,000. So even if you waive and stretch Cam Reddish, that knocks like, off the top of my head, it's like 1.6 million or something like that off of this year's salaries, something like that. And then you have some dead money on your books for the next 3 seasons if you do that. So that doesn't give you enough room to use the full taxpayer MLE, which is just over 5 minutes, like 5.2 million. So unfortunately, no, it doesn't give you that kind of flexibility. What we've seen, all this does is it saves you from the restrictions that come with the second tier apron, which let me pull up the handy dandy chart here. It saves you from these things, particularly it makes it so you can aggregate players in a trade, which that's a big one, I think, that you can put together 2 players in a deal rather than just having to trade players individually. That's, I think, the biggest one. So that's what you can do with the LeBron contract now on the books. And I think that is a big deal, but it's not like you suddenly have spending power at this point.
Yeah, the important thing to note too, because I run through these things as well with the Lakers is, you could start waving and stretching Jackson Hayes and Cam Reddish and who else am I thinking of here? Trevor Maxwell Lewis and Christian Wood. Like you could do that, but the problem is you got to get back to 14 players. So you're not necessarily freeing up enough space under that second apron to then refill out your roster. That's where that kind of becomes in as a challenge. I'm glad you pulled the Lakers cap sheet up. People keep asking, why is Bronny showing a 0 in 24, 25?
They're not going to pay him.
That's it. Yeah, he's working under the table. Dad's paying him out of what, $20 for the movies? I don't know. That's too low now, right? 50 for the movies.
Now
20 Barry buys you.
He can
in
spare.
LA. That probably doesn't even buy you a ticket in LA.
No,
I imagine. So why we show him as 0? Players who signed under the second round pick exception until July 31st, or actually I think it's through July 31st, count as 0 towards the cap or the tax. They count towards the apron calculation. So he still counts in there because the apron is kind of the worst case scenario if all bonuses hit and everything. You have to cover for that. But for the cap and tax. So for the Lakers, this doesn't matter, but it's the way the system is set up. Why they do this is, so if you're the Detroit Pistons and you're going to bring in Bobby Clintman on a second round pick exception deal, you want to sign him and have him play in summer league for you. But you don't want to use up your cap space yet. So the NBA in the new CBA, when they created it, closed a loophole because otherwise what would happen is teams would delay those signings. Those guys wouldn't be able to play in summer league and it'd get real messy. The assumption is by the time we get to the end of July, you've probably used your cap space at that point. And if you haven't, too bad, so sad. We're going to take, $1 million or $2 million out of it to put this guy in the book. So that's why it shows a 0. You'll see that as you scroll through various pages on Spot Track. A handful of guys will be there as 0 for this first year under the second round pick exception.
All right, Keith, we've got a couple of questions to get through before we call it a day here. You will have to explain more of this. Kostas said, hello from Greece. You're invited for vacations. Let's go. All right. Hear that, Keith? We're going to Greece. Keith's my new favorite person because he pissed off Olympiacos fans. Does this have something? What's going on with Vezenov? Is that what's happening here? Why? How did you piss off a whole fan base?
Yeah, I know, a whole overseas fan base. It's normally Lakers fans, Heat fans, and fans of NBA teams. Over the weekend, more reporting came out on the Sasha Vezenkov situation that he's actually agreed to a deal with Olympiacos and would be there. This reporting came out of Europe, and the Toronto Raptors are like, great, he's our player. We're not waiving him right now.
Right.
So I wrote for Spot Track. One, I just said the initial thing that sparked all of it was like, this situation is so fascinating because he can't just go. Like, the Raptors control the process here, much like the Kings did before they traded him. And he can't just leave. And there's no European outs like there are NBA outs on the other way. Maybe there will be in the future. We may see guys being like, hey, I want that written in somewhere, but I don't think the NBA CBA allows for it. So I wrote an explainer for Spot Track. I'll retweet it later today. That just went through, how did we get here? And like, what can happen? Like, what are the rules? And the big thing that becomes a sticking point here is there's a thing called FIBA letter of clearance. And what a FIBA letter of clearance is it states, I am free and fully cleared of all contractual obligations to any other professional basketball club. And then that they have to have that before FIBA will greenlight a contract with another team that's covered under FIBA's jurisdiction, which obviously Olympiacos is as part of EuroLeague and then the Greek league. So this is really still, it's the same spot. It's going to result in Vezenkov going to have to work a buyout with the Raptors, or the Raptors waive him. You can't sell him or transfer him like you can in Europe. The NBA doesn't allow for that. So for Toronto, it makes no sense to just straight waive him and eat $6.6 million in dead money on their books. So if for them, they would probably say, hey, we want almost all, if not all of it back. So that would be a would be a sticking point here for him. Why it made people mad is the reports are he's going back to Olympiacos where he played before. And a lot of Greek fans with extremely creative insults, which I spent a good chunk of Saturday laughing at.
On Google Translate?
Yeah. And some stuff definitely gets lost in translation. A lot of things related to Tom Hanks, which I didn't fully understand. Yeah, and things that I may have.
Tom Hanks.
Yeah, things I may want to do behind closed doors with Tom Hanks for some reason. I don't really understand where that comes in, but
That's
it was they all made me laugh though. So yeah, hey, anytime I can first thing in the morning on like a holiday weekend fire up another whole side of the country, let's go for it. Let's go.
So you angered an entire fan base by raining on their parade. They were excited. They're getting this guy, and you're going, yeah, maybe pump the brakes on that. And so then they respond by taking shots. Of course, because of course, shoot the messenger. That's the way it works.
Yeah, shots at me and Tom Hanks by proxy.
And Tom Hanks.
I will also say too, I'll put it out here, same as I did over on Twitter. I don't really care where he plays next year. Hopefully he lands wherever he plays and is happy and just can go. But Kostas, I'll come. I'll wear different hat and a different pullover.
We'll hang disguise.
Out. But I want to stay in one of those hotels that now everybody tells me are all AI images where it's like all white, like sandstone or whatever it is.
Right.
It's like multiple like levels of pools that lead down into the crystal clear blue waters. But yeah, I've never been to Greece. I've always wanted to go.
You should wear a shirt with Tom Hanks on it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that might get me killed. I don't know.
D-Rock said, just got out of church. Anything my Nets can do. I mean, the Nets have already done some stuff.
Some prayers.
Yeah, like this is The Nets have made some moves here. I mean, you
Yeah.
can use Ben Simmons as an expiring contract in a deal. And then I wouldn't be surprised if they moved one or both of Dorian Finney-Smith or Cam Johnson. But I don't think D-Rock, I don't think the sad face is
Yeah.
warranted here. Your Nets already made a big move, got a ton of draft picks, and now you're in position to make a subsequent move. So I'd be excited. In fact, D-Rock, I think should be a smiley face. He should be celebrating, because the Nets have a much brighter future today than they did a couple weeks ago.
2 moves, right? Because they also made the Rockets move to get their own picks.
Oh, correct. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, that one's kind of keeps going out of my brain because that was like no players involved. I'm in that transaction. But yeah, so here's the thing with the Nets. They're probably going to be pretty ugly. They're probably going to be pretty bad. But look at next year, man. There is 2 guaranteed salaries on that book, because Shake Milton will flip to non-guaranteed once that goes official on our side, once we know what the numbers look like on Spot Track. Cam Johnson and Nick Claxton. That's it, man. Those are your only 2 guaranteed contracts on the books. Everything else could be wiped clean. I don't expect it all will be. I think, they'll Finney Smith will probably pick up his player option, or he'll be traded somewhere else. So we'll see. But yeah, you just got to be patient. You just have to wait it out. Watch this team for Cam Thomas going and getting buckets, I guess. And they don't have like a ton of like super exciting young talent. I've heard a couple of people tell me Derek Whitehead looks kind of okay. So I'm curious to see in Summer League if that holds true. But yeah, it's going to be probably kind of an ugly year, probably more movement coming, but most of it's just going to be designed to let's get to a really good place where we can get things moving in a good direction.
All right. This one says, Kevin, is this the first time LeBron has had a trade kicker in his contract? It's not a trade kicker. It's a no trade clause. And I guess there could be a trade kicker too. Yeah. Not that I expect the trade, but it's interesting that they added that language. I think they just threw in everything he could possibly have. LeBron just said, I'll take all of that. That's what it came down to. I don't think this suggests that LeBron is looking at getting traded or anything like that. He just said, hey, what's everything you can put in? Okay, cool. Let's do that.
And they drop off David Putney at his house this morning.
Exactly.
So I think his original Lakers contract had a trade bonus in it too, I think. These trade bonuses are kind of more of a just in case. If they decide to rip up the CBA tomorrow and then they say, all right, no more max contracts, like you can make $100 million if you want, then LeBron wants it, because if he gets traded, then his contract could go up. As it stands right now, the trade bonus would just bump him up to the max if he was moved. But that's really it. No major difference there. The no trade is obviously potentially huge. I don't think we're going to get to a point where the Lakers trade him, but it's there. And then with LeBron, we're definitely in this. I don't think you will you'll see him sign more than a 1+1 from here on out. This is going to be
that flexibility.
Yeah, exactly. He's going to control this process all the way out. Not that he won't always opt out every year. I mean, he may. And then I thought it was interesting over the weekend, the reporting that came out of LeBron wants to be the face of the Las Vegas franchise. That came out, and he may kind of
he's in Vegas
hang
right
in
now
as a player until that comes around. So
right.
So which would make sense. I kind of think that's where we go. I think he keeps playing, plays the first year with the Las Vegas team, then moves over fully to the ownership side. Maybe he calls it quits before that. I don't know. But yeah, we're kind of down that part of the road. Hey, I want to cover off on 2 signings just so we don't forget them.
Yeah.
Dario Saric to the Nuggets.
Oh yeah.
Not bad.
Again, more than a veteran minimum. Welcome to the center market.
Gave him the taxpayer MLE. So little interesting. You've still got Zeke Naji there. You drafted Deron Holmes, but clearly wanted another big. They also re-signed Vlatko Čančar. Čančar looked rough basketball-wise in the Olympic qualifying tournament. Looked very good physically, though. And that honestly, for NBA terms, that's way more important. The Saric deal, though, he played great in the Olympic qualifying tournament. One game he had a triple-double. Another game he had close. Croatia doesn't have Bojan Bogdanovic is not playing for them because he's still recovering from off-season surgeries. So Saric was like one of their primary playmakers and looked really, really good with that one. And then the other one, Simone Fontecchio back to the
Mhm.
Pistons, about $10 million for him to go back to Detroit. So, okay. I think,
Yeah.
wasn't it 10? I think it was 10.
I thought it was
Maybe
like
16?
16
16. It was
over
16
2.
because it looked like the room exception amount
Yeah.
potentially
16
for
over
him.
2.
But everything's still pretty flexible with Detroit. They've got a ton of cap space left. But yes, I like that deal for the Pistons. Pistons put more shooting around their kids. So
All right, let's go rapid fire through these last few because I got to wrap this up and run off to the fam here. Let's see. This one said any traction for Wendell Carter Jr. to LA, he would be a great fit. He would, but I don't know that the Magic for sure are going to trade him. But he's one of a bunch of players that you could put out as potential targets.
Yeah, I think the Magic are pretty close to done with their roster for now. They not that they would pass up a great deal if it came their way, but they don't need any more guards. They've got guards for days now. They don't even have minutes for Anthony Black as the team stands today. They really want to try to find a way to get him on the floor. That'll have to come through injuries or something. And then they like the Carter, Batadze, Mo Wagner trio of bigs. They like that because they like those guys. They're very happy with their roster right now.
All right, what's your percentage Lauri Markkanen gets traded to the Warriors?
Pretty low.
Yeah. I mean, we know Danny Ainge is going to want a lot. I know he's the name that they're buzzing for right now, but we'll see if they actually happen. I hope Sean Marks can acquire a second lottery pick. I mean, looking at what they've got, I would be a little surprised if they got a lottery pick out of Cam Johnson or Dorian Finney-Smith.
Yeah. What you're hoping there is you trade one of those guys, and the team they go to gives you a first that's unprotected for whatever reason, and that team falls apart.
And then that team falls apart. Yep, exactly.
But you're probably more getting I would say you get like a lottery protected first there. To go back to the Lauri Markkanen thing, it would have to be Andrew Wiggins probably. So I don't know if the Jazz want to do that. I'm not sure the Jazz want to take that money on the books moving forward. So we'll see. I do think Markkanen's going to get traded. I have a feeling. But did you see the interesting little tidbit? He can't renegotiate and extend until August 6th.
Oh, yeah. He has 1 day when he's trade eligible before the deadline.
Yep, exactly. Yep, he has one. It goes right to the day.
That's crazy.
That will lift if he does that. So that could be how this plays out too.
All right. So, Keith, what would Golden State have to do to use the biannual exception?
I don't know that they can now. Not all of their deals have gone final yet, but they're probably not going to be able to because I think that would push them over the
they're at 176 million right now in active cap.
Yeah, I think that would push them over the first apron. I think because they're going to have to fit Melton signing in under the first apron, and that basically takes you right to it. So.
All right. And last one, Jalen Smith to the Bulls was a steal. Disappointed the Lakers couldn't sign him. Well, I mean, they didn't have the room or the money to sign him. Do you think he's poised for a breakout season with more playing time? Yeah, I mean, as long as we don't set the expectations too high. So how you define breakout, but sure, I think more playing time, he could definitely be a more consistent presence there for Chicago. And especially it's going to depend on how this Bulls roster gets reshaped on the fly as they sell off players, as they get rid of, if they move Zach LaVine, what comes back in that trade. That's going to matter for Jalen Smith in terms of what opportunities are really there for him. But if he's got a starting role at like 25 minutes a night or something like that, plus to start the season, sure, he's got plenty of potential.
Yeah. I mean, he had a great shooting season last year, so let's see. If he can replicate that, this is absolutely a steal of a deal. I think we're pretty close already. So yeah, I think that is they're in a pretty good place. So I think let's see what happens with that one. The Lakers, I get it. It is funny. I saw a lot of people in the Valanciunas details drop that it came in under 10 million. I had a lot of Laker fans I saw on my timeline and hitting me in my mentions like, why didn't the Lakers jump on this? He was on LeBron's list. That could have been as simple as New Orleans saying, we don't want anything back in a sign and trade. Because remember, it was a sign and trade. So could they have done the whole open up the full non-tax and sign him that way? Yeah, they could have, but the Lakers might also set a line on him saying, yeah, we don't, we'll do it for a year or 2 years. And maybe he's like, I want 2 full, because he got the third year non-guaranteed. Who knows where that ultimately lands? I wouldn't don't lose your minds over that one.
And they may have said, and we can't guarantee you a starting job. And
That's
Washington may have
exactly.
said, we're going to start you. And then that's part of it too.
Yeah. I mean, he's still a good player, but you're not, you should be able to get by. That's what I would say. If you're the team you think you're going to be, you should be okay. So,
all right. Well, with that,
man, we zipped.
Thank you guys for coming in. This was great. We had a great turnout for a kind of an impromptu Sunday morning here. I'm pretty sure that's what day it is anyway. But fantastic Sunday, turnout. But we appreciate all of you guys joining us. And we'll be back tomorrow with more. So make sure you do subscribe to the NBA Front Office Show on YouTube. Turn on those notifications as well. Thanks again, everybody. We'll see you and stay safe.